Ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Monica Jackson, and I'm the Interim Deputy Provost and Dean of Faculty at American University, and I'm also a professor of mathematics and statistics. Thank you for joining the National Association of Mathematicians Cox-Talbot lecture. It's my pleasure to moderate this session and introduce to you Dr. Talitha Washington. Dr. Washington is the inaugural director of the Atlanta University Center Consortium Data Science Initiative. This initiative seeks to promote data-driven solutions to current and emerging societal problems, especially as it pertains to African American communities. Dr. Washington is a professor of mathematics at Clark Atlanta University and is affiliated faculty member at Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College. She is the former program director at the National Science Foundation. Previously, as a director of the Division of Undergraduate Education, she was instrumental in building and establishing NSF's first Hispanic serving program, which funded $40 million in awards. Her research interests include the application of differential equations to problems in biology and engineering, as well as the development of non-standard finite difference schemes to numerically solve dynamical systems. Dr. Washington completed her undergraduate studies mathematics at Spelman College. She earned a master's and doctoral degree in mathematics from the University of Connecticut. She has previously held appointments at Duke University, the College of New Rochelle, University of Evansville, and most recently, Howard University. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Washington as she talks about leveraging data science, HBCUs, to advance innovation.
Thank you for that introduction, Monica. It's a pleasure to be here and hope you can see my screen. Okay, that's a yes. Great. So as she said, my name is Talitha Washington. I'm a professor of mathematics at Clark Atlanta University and the inaugural director of the Data Science Initiative in the Atlanta University Center, where I work across 4 HBCUs, Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College. And I'm going to share a little bit. First, I'm going to talk about HBCUs in general. Then I'm going to talk about how I delved into data science. And then I'm going to talk about how data science is impacting what we do and why we need to look at things such as ethics and bias. So my disclaimer is all of my opinions are my own. And if they're good, bad, or indifferent, if questions or comments come up as I'm talking, feel free to put those in the chat and then we'll answer questions at the end. This presentation may contain content that some may find disturbing, so I just want to give you a heads up. So just take a deep breath, sit back and enjoy the ride. So this is the Cox-Talbot lecture. I have this esteemed honor and privilege to give this lecture. This lecture really focuses on 2 mathematicians who were the first, Albert Frank Cox, the first Black in the world to earn a PhD in math, and the 4th Black to earn a PhD in mathematics, Walter Talbot. Both Albert and Walter had a big influence on the education of Blacks over their careers and also had a big impact on the influence at HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. Albert Cox and I actually grew up in the same neighborhood of Evansville, Indiana, which is a southwestern town in Indiana. He earned his PhD from Cornell in 1925, and he spent most of his career at Howard University and was also chair there. There was an article written by his son, who later became a dean at Howard, who said that by 1965, Albert had the most students with master's degrees. I'm still in the process of trying to figure out who those people are. He also wrote a paper on the grading system, and that impacted how the College of Liberal Arts dealt with grading at the university. Walter Talbot earned a PhD in mathematics in 1935. He was first a professor at Lincoln University and then spent the majority of his career as chair at, as Dr. Leon Woodson would say, the great Morgan State University. I hope I got that right. Walter Talbot led the introduction of computer technology at Morgan State, and he's the first to get funding for a NAM conference, and this was back in 1969. So he's pretty active in bringing mathematicians together into the fold and really influenced active participation. Both Howard University and Morgan State University offer PhDs in mathematics. So just a little bit about historically Black colleges and universities. These institutions were established prior to 1964, whose principal mission was and is the education of Black Americans. So this was established by a Higher Education Act. So this is a historical record. So it's not based on enrollment number, it's a historical designation. So per the White House initiative on HBCUs is that HBCUs offer all kinds of students, regardless of race, an opportunity to develop their skills and talents. So in theory, all kinds of students attend HBCUs. And actually the first students to attend Howard University were white females, daughters of the founders. So we've always had a mix of students at HBCUs. There are approximately 101 across the nation, and we enroll 300,000 students, 80% of which are African-American, 70% from low-income families. One of the things that I'm concerned about as a mother of a son is that Black women are overrepresented at HBCUs. So Black women are more than 60% of the undergraduate population at HBCUs. And this gives me a concern when I'm thinking about the health of the Black community and also looking at representation of Black males across the mathematical landscape. That also is a concern of mine. For example, Howard University, the undergraduate population, 69% are female. At Clark Atlanta, 76% are female. So so when people come to me and say, oh, females underrepresented, I'm like, no, we need to change the conversation at HBCUs. Really, it's the Black males that are underrepresented. HBCUs make up about 3% of all institutions of higher education and enroll 10% of all students in higher education, 10 Black students. So there's just a little bit of HBCUs and STEM policy. This is probably for Karen Sachs there, who's amazing with the AMS. So back in June in 2020, the National Science Board put out a statement on racism in science and engineering. We all saw the happenings in George Floyd and a whole bunch of other unfortunate incidences. So the National Science Board said that we strongly call for increased inclusion of Black people in science and engineering, and we commit to increased support for research at HBCUs. They said that they're going to act intentionally to remove barriers. And I'm hoping that we, the community, can make sure that this is realized. It's not clear to me how this will be evaluated, measured, assessed, and how this will be accountable. Also, this past December, I guess last week, December 31st, 2020, was the HBC Partners Act was passed. And so this is looking to address inequities, resource inequities at HBCUs and trying to make the federal funding more equitable across all higher education institutions. So we are seeing some momentum to bring parity to the support for HBCUs. And both of these could have direct impacts on the STEM fields and data science at HBCUs. So how did I get into data science? I guess it's by my students. My students tend to pull me by the ears in different directions. I ended up going to Park City Math Institute back in 2016 at Utah, which is super fun. If you've never been, go. And essentially it's 3 weeks in the Utah mountains doing math. In this case, it was doing data science, where we just sat around and we mulled over, what is this thing of data science? What does it look like to have a curriculum? And we ended up writing a paper on the curriculum guidelines for undergraduate programs in data science. And so this really kind of spawned my interest. I'm an applied mathematician. And if you see on the right-hand side, I'm wearing a mask. That's my like playing card. It's kind of funny. But anyway, so I'm an applied mathematician. So thinking, I usually do dynamical systems, differential equations, sorts of things. But I like to figure out how things work using math. Data is, if you're given some information or data, what can you say about it? Or how can you capture things? So it piques my interest as a mathematician. So at the Park City Math Institute, I think maybe 2 days, maybe 3, trying to define the word data. That's an interesting exercise in and of itself. But we really came to a neat consensus about thinking about the data science major. So this paper really focused more on the major, maybe more math heavy than some of the other liberal arts focused data science programs that we see. We went with the definition that was given by the NSF Math Physical Sciences Directorate Advisory Committee, which is the science of planning for, acquisition, management, analysis of, and inference from data. Now, if you try to get 2 people to agree on data science, it's kind of all over the place. But I think the ambiguity is also a draw for me. In this paper, we talk about the theoretical foundations coming from statistics, computer science, and mathematics. The idea is to interpret data, but it's interpreting data in the context of the domain in which the data arose. So there's some sort of contextualization. The data point comes with the context. So that has to also be taken into account when analyzing it. So what is this thing of data science? SCIAM just came out with this journal on mathematics of data science. And for this journal, they say they publish work that advances mathematical, statistical, and computational methods in the context of data and information sciences. So you can almost think of it as a hodgepodge of tools where we can go in and look at data, maybe extract value from data. So there, you won't get a robust definition. Like similarly, if you ask somebody to define the word mathematics, we may be up in this with the same result. So HBCUs have a unique position when it comes to diversifying the STEM fields, and in this case, diversifying data science. So on the lower right, the student supply of data science moving forward is significantly less than the employer demand. This is employers who would like their job candidates with data science skills. So HBCUs, we graduate 24% of Black students with STEM degrees, even though we only enroll 10% of all Black students. And HBCUs are the institution of origin of almost 30% of Black graduates in STEM doctorate programs. Often when I'm in company of others at math meetings, the majority of us will have had some sort of passing through an HBCU. If it's not at the undergraduate or graduate level, it's the faculty. And some, I think Leon Woodson has only been in an HBCU. And Kendra Pleasant, there's two, if I get the counts right. So in August 2020.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have to correct that.
Uh-oh.
Shay Burns was the first African-American woman to do that.
Okay, so now it's a set of three.
Probably.
Okay, I want to make sure that data count right. All right, yeah. So yeah, hilarious. So in August 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry, she just reminded me of that a couple of days ago.
So before coming here, I was at Howard University and National Science Foundation. Kind of got tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, why don't you come to Atlanta? So in August of 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, I loaded up my Mazda 3 and put my stuff in it, whatever I could take, and came down to Atlanta and became the inaugural director of the Atlanta University Center Consortium. And I love the motto of Atlanta University is I'll find a way or make one. So the Atlanta University Center has a long history with social justice. Back in the day, there was an Atlanta student movement where the leaders of the AUC member schools got together, and this was back in March of 1960, and wrote an appeal for human rights, looking for demonstration. They were looking to achieve the same rights and privileges for Negroes. And shown there on the lower right is Julian Bond, who's a graduate of Morehouse College. That was right after he graduated, and that was his group from SNCC that worked here in Atlanta. So our center, data science, really is built on this backbone of students really motivating social justice throughout our history. We work again across Clark Atlanta University, which is a R2 comprehensive university. Spelman College was all female liberal arts. Morehouse College, all male liberal arts. And Morehouse School of Medicine, graduate school, medical school. So we've identified two talents. So as any good data scientist would do, you apply a cluster algorithm and take everybody's input and try to whittle it down to a couple of goals so you can make some predictions. So our first goal that we identified was to develop talent. We want to be a significant producer of African Americans with expertise and credentials in data science. We recognize the underrepresentation of African Americans in data science, and we see some of the impacts that can have. Our second goal is to create new knowledge. We want to lead national efforts to address race, gender, and social justice aspects of data science. And we really want to focus on topics that impact Black America, because if we don't do it, then whom? We are built on 3 pillars. Our doing is through curriculum, research, and engagement. So, somebody, there we go. So there was a data science for undergraduates report that came out some time ago, which is another nice document to inform kind of how we're thinking about our curriculum aspect. So we would like students to use statistical package, have programming skills, be able to acquire, prepare, analyze, visualize, blend data from different sources, interpret database models, manage data, apply data science practices, and have everything grounded in ethics and societal concerns. We also like for students to go through the data science project lifecycle and apply to solve problems, and communication is key. So the way in which one of the ways in which we're building our curriculum is we're starting with the minor, and this data science minor is across 3 institutions: Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, and Spelman College. So I have a team of 3 from Clark Atlanta, a team of 3 from Morehouse, and 3 from Spelman. I also have 1 member from Morehouse School of Medicine and 1 member from the AUC Library. Altogether, we form a pathway where we meet and talk about how to develop the minor and what we identify as topics. And each of the 3 institutions then will go and put a minor proposal through their respective institutions. So we have identified a grounding course that will be across the AUC that's going to focus on data in the African diaspora. That will be our introductory course. We look at data science topics that impact Black America. We've identified 6 components that we'd like to focus in on. The first one, buckets you could say, is math and statistics. The second one is programming. Third one's modeling. Fourth one is data curation. Fifth one is ethics, and then communication. So these are our guiding things of what we want our students to be able to do, to learn, to know upon completion of this minor. Most say that a major is easier than the minor because it's really hard to pick and choose what to do. But on our team, we have anywhere from, so Dr. Rucker from Clark Atlanta, she's a mathematician on there. We also have people from the School of Business. We also have people from sociology. We have people from the arts. So we really span the spectrum of different disciplines, and also computer scientists too. But we span the spectrum of disciplines, which really brings unique perspective to our minor. So really excited. Last summer, we led a summer undergraduate research program where students worked with faculty on different data science projects, and some looked at racial diversity in medical research. Some others looked at elucidating pathways towards academic achievement in the elementary school years among African-American children, data in the humanities, data in natural sciences and mathematics. So the students really looked at different aspects of data science with faculty mentors. And we look forward to doing that again this summer. So really super excited. Okay, my slides are having a mind of their own. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so we also are working with different HBCUs looking at data science. So data science is I keep hearing, I'll share with you my, some of the things that irk me. People say, well, HBCUs are doing data science. And the answer is yes, HBCUs are doing data science. Bowie State University, it's in Maryland. They have a data science and analytics initiative. It's NSF funded. They're looking to develop they are and have developed course modules. They're doing curriculum development, undergraduate research, and they also have faculty learning communities. Florida A&M University, it's in Tallahassee, they just got funded from the South Big Data Hub to build a community of data science across 6 HBCUs: Alabama A&M, Bowie State, Morehouse College, Johnson C. Smith, and Norfolk State. Fisk University is in Nashville, Tennessee. They actually have the first dedicated undergraduate data science program in the state of Tennessee. It's pretty cool. And Howard University has a data science and cybersecurity center. There's a lot of data science that interplays with cybersecurity, and also machine learning and AI. North Carolina A&T, they have PhD and master's program in computational data science and engineering. In North Carolina Central, this was just this past fall, they launched a major in information technology with concentration in data analytics. So there's a lot of HBCUs now that are really developing different types of data science programs. And I know here at the Atlanta University Center, my provost, I report to provost, so well, where should it, if we have a data science major minor, where should it live? So this just kind of gives you a snapshot view of 1, 2, 3, 4 different HBCUs and kind of where they live. So Fisk is a private liberal arts HBCU. They have a bachelor's in data science and a minor, and they have a combined department of math and computer science. Howard University, they have a master's and PhD in computer science, and you can specialize in data science topics. And Howard is private, federally chartered R2. And this all lives in the computer science department. Morgan State University is a public R2, and they just launched, I think this past, not too long ago, this past year, I think they launched, it was the cloud computing and the master's in bioinformatics and advanced computing. That's in the Department of Computer Science. They also have a PhD in industrial and computational mathematics, which includes data analysis and computation. North Carolina Central is a public liberal arts HBCU. It's in Durham, North Carolina. They have an MBA. This just came this past fall. They have an MBA with a data analytics concentration, bachelor's in IT, and a minor in data analytics. They also have a SAS certificate, which is like four courses, and they did this in conjunctions with SAS, and this lives in their School of Business. So, you know, when people ask me, where does data science live? I guess wherever you want, wherever it makes most sense. And then, you know, I always say that right now we're really focused on the data science minor. I say that data science minors are like two snowflakes. You know, no two snowflakes are the same. No two data science minors are the same. But we're still trying to figure out, I think, as a community, what that really looks like. My personal view is that the School of Business, they're a little bit farther along because business has, you know, with data analytics and making sure that their graduates are trained for the profession, I think they're a little bit farther along than maybe we are in the College of Arts and Sciences side. So if I'm a student and I major in data science or I do some data science, what can I do? Well, there's a myriad of companies, anywhere from Apple to IBM, Oracle, HCA, Deloitte. We even had data scientists at the National Science, or they had data scientists at the National Science Foundation as well. And what kind of job titles are there? They come in different job titles. So it could be anywhere from a systems analyst to a web developer, to a data analyst, to a database administrator. So there could be different job titles for a data scientist, depending on the focus. For research and graduate studies, one, you know, if you have a bachelor's in data science, you could get a PhD in data science, lo and behold, or you could spawn off into computer science, engineering, and so on. You can also go into research in the national labs, or also research in the tech companies. So, and there are also other related jobs that employ data scientists, anywhere from journalism and mass communications to tourism or recreation and so on. So there's different opportunities for data scientists. So what do they do? Well, this is from the IBM, what is data science? So a data scientist, in theory, would apply math, statistics, and the scientific method. That's so broad, but it really kind of depends on what you're looking at, how you want to look at it, and what you want to say about it. Sometimes you're given more information or less, and that could also determine what sort of tools that you employ. The end game really is to, can you extract some insights from the data? And hopefully those insights aren't wrong. And you could tell stories. You could tell stories from the data to solve some problems. So back in 2016, I went to ICERM for a predictive policing workshop. I remember before the workshop, I was talking with Ed Ray Goins, and I said, Ed Ray, there's no African Americans going. I said, I should go. He was like, You knock yourself out. So I did go. And it was a challenging workshop. We looked at calls for services, and I looked at noise disturbances. So I made a heat map. So on the right-hand side, it's that this is the calls for service. Like if you call 911, hi 911, this is an emergency, then I have a noise disturbance. That call gets logged, and we had all their call data. So I did a geospatial heat map of where all the calls for services landed. So this is from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., 6 a.m. to 12 p.m., 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., and then this is 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. Notice as the night goes on, you get this little red spot, and that's kind of right near Providence College. So I should have said that this is actually Providence, Rhode Island. And so I remember sitting in this workshop, and it was a struggle because we did the ride along, I guess like the movie, but when we looked at the data, I grew up with people who went to jail, who had bad interactions with police, who had been mauled down by police canines and things. And so when we were in the workshop, I don't think other people had those experiences, and they talked as such. And so at one point I said, well, why don't we see what the response time is? So there was a song back in the day where they say 911 is a joke. Like you get pizza delivery faster than 911 comes to your town. So I wanted to look at what's the response time depending on what zip code you're in. And people were like, well, that doesn't matter. That's not a thing. I was like, yeah, that's kind of a known phenomenon in the Black community. But when you're in those situations and people just look at the data, what can I say, without thinking about what are some consequences that could interact with the data, we can end up with wrong predictions. So with predictive policing models, the question is, can we predict what and where something is likely happen to minimize risk for the public and also for those of service? The issue is that in some of these models, if we use biased data to train these models, then the models are going to reproduce these biases, and in some cases amplify them. In Oakland, there was a tool they used called Predictive, and Black people would be targeted by predictive policing at roughly twice the rate of whites, which is not what people saw in real life. So these predictive policing models, you got bad data in, you have ill interpretation of what's going on and what could impact the data and what questions to ask, and then you're just going to get trash out. And so this past summer, there was a group of mathematicians that wrote a letter calling for the colleagues to stop collaborating with police because of all the police happenings and the disparities. Me being the only US minority at the workshop, it was challenging. And I remember at one point I did a call to Monica. I was like, Monica, this is hard. She was like, girl, you better get in there. You'll be fine. So, but the hard part was to sit there and say, no, these are my people. This is not what we experience. This is not our reality. And people just completely missing that. I personally wouldn't say to not work with police. I would say we need to take into account these cultural differences when we deal and work with data, so we don't do more harm than good. So facial recognition has been an issue, we'll say, for some time. Back in this past July 2020, the New York Times wrote a story about a man who was wrongfully accused by an algorithm. So imagine you're coming home from work, getting out the car, your wife and kids outside, and cops come up, put you in handcuffs in front of your wife and kids. You're like, what did I do? They had a photo where they thought it was him. They used facial recognition software, but they were wrong. So Julian, they had him go down to the station, took a mugshot, fingerprints, DNA, held him overnight, and it was not him. They were using, the police in Michigan, they were using an algorithm that was known to falsely identify African Americans. And the detective said to his partner, I guess the computer got it wrong. And, I could not imagine being put in handcuffs in front of my children. That is the most humiliating. So when we get these algorithms wrong, it's not that, oops, I forgot to carry a one. It's, I can really do damage to people, and it's people's lives who will be hurt as a result. Also recently, Timnit Gebru, she was a Google employee. She's shown at the lower left. She works in artificial intelligence, and Google said, okay, you've got to go, and basically pushed her out the door. So just a little bit about Timnit. She co-authored a paper called Gender Shades, where she looked at the bias in facial recognition system and looked at classification systems by Microsoft, IBM, and Face++. In this paper, they actually show that if you're darker and if you're female, it shows wrong. So she was calling to question these systems that were being sold to police departments to do facial recognition. And her recommendation was you need more transparency in the algorithms, and we need more accountability in AI. So she's been a really strong advocate for bringing transparency and accountability in artificial intelligence. Recently, this past, not too long ago, she wrote a paper, co-wrote a paper on the limitations of AI systems that analyze and generate language. When you write the paper, and if you're in a company, you have to go through chain of command to get it out and publish it. But the Google's head of AI said that doesn't meet our bar for publication. So note that it wasn't being published at Google, it was being published somewhere else, but Google said it doesn't meet our bar. So it seemed like something fishy was going on. So some say Google pushed her out, basically fired her, because of the inconvenient truths, these inconvenient truths that these AI, these data science tools. Okay, that was interesting. We're impacting African Americans. She also co-founded Black in AI. So about a month ago, Google's CEO apologizes and vows to restore trust after Black scientist ouster. We've also seen how data science and artificial intelligence or machine learning can impact voter suppression. So this article was in the Miami Herald back in October 2020. It was how the Trump campaign used big data to deter Miami-Dade's Black communities from voting. So they were looking to essentially suppress the Black vote. It was along the I-95 corridor in Miami-Dade County. So they had a computer algorithm, analyze the voter data, and try to figure out who could be manipulated. And they manipulated people through advertisements, disinformation, and misleading messages. So in this, imagine you have all these names in these data sets, and the people that you're going to manipulate, those people were actually marked for deterrence, meaning they really were going to deter democracy. So 25% of these voters were Black, even though they only made up 13% of registered voters. So the company, Cambridge Analytica, offered voter disengagement as a service in the United States. And there are internal documents that Christopher Wiley has seen that made reference to these tactics. And Christopher Wiley testified to the Senate Judiciary Committee that the firm would target African-American voters and discourage them from participating in elections. Unfortunately, this country has had a long history in suppressing the Black vote. It's something that I'm seeing here in Georgia. And this is, I don't know, maybe the modern day technology way of suppressing the Black vote. We see what can happen when politics go bad. And so the picture on the left on the bottom is from yesterday when people stormed the Capitol, and we're comparing that to people who were arrested in the Black Lives Matter movement. That's in the upper left. And President-elect Joe Biden talked about that today, how one group, those with the Black Lives Matter movement, were treated much, much more severely than those who stormed the Capitol building yesterday. And as you also may know, yesterday morning, Georgia sent up 2 Democrats, one of which is a Morehouse graduate, the first Black from Georgia to be elected to the Senate. And he's actually one of 10 Blacks ever in the history of the United States elected to the Senate. So we have a lot more work to do. And luckily we have Stacey Abrams, who's my Spelman sister, who's really working throughout Georgia to maybe unsuppress the vote. And we have now a vice president-elect from Howard University, all 3 of which are HBCUs. So even though we're in this pivotal time, we'll make it through. But this whole thing of AI, machine learning, predictive policing, this really, for me, is a personal endeavor. Last summer in May, there were 2 students, one from Spelman, one from Morehouse, who were tased and arrested on live television. And so when I talk about data science, social justice, machine learning, AI, and ethics, I'm really talking about protecting my students, my faculty, my staff from the negative impacts that has happened over the years and unfortunately continue to happen. And before, when I talked about the Atlanta student movement, they talked about an appeal for human rights. And in this document, it says it's unfortunate that the Negro is being forced to fight in any way for what is due him and freely accorded to other Americans. So even though our students back in 1960 wrote that, our students today are still negatively impacted. And we look to make a change to do this better and to provide that insight so we can move beyond and move out of where we are. So this is my last slide. On the left-hand side is a picture of W.B. Du Bois, and he's at his desk at Atlanta University. Atlanta University is now a part of Clark Atlanta University. Du Bois was known as a data visualization innovator. He told the stories of Blacks using data visualization, 63 of them, even coined the Du Bois spiral in his exhibit of American Negroes. So oftentimes I feel that he's kind of looking at us to make sure that we carry on his work, carry on his legacy, to really use data science to carry on the work, to share the story of what's happening, to provide the solution, in particular for topics that impact Black America. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Washington. That was a very informative talk. It's exciting to see the work that HBCUs are doing, the work that you're going to be doing to advance data science, especially in this culture now. It's definitely going to be needed. So thank you for that. Okay, we want to open this up to questions from the audience. We have some time left. So firstly, quite a few people on here. If you could just in the chat say that, acknowledge a question that you have, and I will call on you. You just tell me you have a question, and we can start there. And if not, I have a couple of questions for you. Okay, so to get you started, Dr. Washington, can you talk about what's going to be necessary to ensure HBCUs are successful in this arena, and make sure your initiative will be successful? What do you think will be needed?
Really, we're just rolling up our sleeves and doing the work. We're on uncharted territory. When I was at National Science Foundation, I essentially crafted out the data science component for the Improving Undergraduate STEM Education program. So I looked at data science education across the nation, and then I was in a Convergence Accelerator where we also looked at AI and data science topics there. But one thing I didn't see was how to use and leverage and move data science to where we can deal with these social inequities. And when I talk with my friends at the other data science institutes, there's a disconnect in language, right? There's a disconnect in how we think about data science, because when we think about data science with ethics and all the rest of that with African Americans, we will have one perspective where others may have another perspective that may not be socially grounded or conducive when we are dealing with data that is oftentimes, I'll say difficult or culturally grounded. So the work that HBCUs are doing, we're gearing up, we're connecting with one another. I've reached out, forming networks. And so this spring, we're looking forward to rolling out programming, but it really is that we will develop something that's new, that's different, and we look forward to adding to the knowledge base in data science and really just pushing the field to be more equitable.
Okay, thank you. And I saw Karen Taylor has a question. Do you want to ask your question?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dr. Washington. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is about how do you see the curating of photographs as part of data and part of telling stories?
That's a good question. So we do have an AUC, Art Collective and Curatorial Studies here. And I'm actually going to look towards partnering with them to see if we can have some cross activities between data science and art. As you know, there's a lot of visualizations in data science, and how can we leverage with our art friends to make sure that we are preserving that. But visualizations is important to tell the story of data, and our data science minor team was really adamant that students need to know how to communicate data to different audiences. You just can't do something, spit out a result, and then that's it. But they were we had a long discussion about how students need to be able to discuss, share the results of the data science to audience A, B, C, D, all of which could be different. So we're really excited to see how this work will progress.
Okay, next we have Dwight Williams has a question. Do you want to ask your question?
Thank you again for the time, Dr. Washington. I have a question about the 2020 census and the UCC. Are there any projects going on, the data science initiative right now dealing with the census for 2020 or the upcoming ones next decade?
That's a good question. So we're looking now to develop the research projects and topics for the summertime, both for our summer undergraduate research program and also our pre-freshman data program. And we are going to have a theme of social justice for both of those programs. So we would like to look at census data. One of the things I'm interested in is looking at voter data here in Georgia. I talked with Robert Patilla of the Rainbow Push Coalition, who's down here in Georgia the other day, and he was saying that it's an interesting question that those elected into office demographically don't match the voter pool. And why is that? And how are the boundary lines drawn that really impact the voters? So I want to get into the census data, the voter data, and we really want to look at these data science topics so we can kind of understand how these different policies are impacting the Black community. In the event, hopefully we can make recommendations for how to move forward. So yeah, it's on our minds because we have the Voter Rights Act coming soon.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Okay, Edre Goins, you want to ask your question? Dr. Goins? Let me see if I can go back.
I can read it. He
Okay,
says,
go ahead.
he said there was a lot of discussion this past summer, especially in the LA Times, he's from LA, about the lack of diversity in companies in Silicon Valley. Yeah. Considering the recent firing of Timnit Gebru, why do you think Black graduates from HBCUs should go to work for companies like Google if they have inherently racist cultures? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's a question of why would we send our student to any institution that won't give a fair treatment to our students? I remember I was speaking with I won't say the institution, but an institution west of me, and they were like, oh, you should have our students take this or do that. And I'm like, you don't have a track record in educating African-American students. Are you saying that we can't educate our own students? Like what? So there's this weird assumption that for some reason at HBCUs, we don't do education, where we have been shown to do high quality education and academics, in particular for Black students. And it's interesting that sometimes I get approached either by graduate programs or companies, and I'm like, do you understand what we do and how we can partner? I remember when I first came on, my staff person, who's amazing, Bettina Gardner, give her a shout out there. She would always cringe when I would say, when graduate programs, I said, we are not your feeding ground for underrepresented students. We are your partners. So that's really what gets me more than anything, that people discount the quality of education and academic experience that we provide for our students. So I do put my foot down there. Now, for students that want to go on to these companies that have shown to have a lack of diversity, yeah, that's going to be a challenge. Because do you want to send, I say that being the first US Black going to the University of Connecticut for graduate school and subsequently graduating. So I've been there. Some students, maybe they're crazy enough, I don't know, to do that, but some students don't want to do that. So I don't have a good answer. I wouldn't necessarily want to tell a student, you must do A or you must do B. However, I do feel it is my job to inform the student that if they pick A, here's some social things you may want to consider. Here's some professional things to consider. Likewise, if they pick B, here's some social things that they may want to consider or they may want to take into account so they can make an informed decision, not just based on salary or job performance, but also with an understanding of what the workplace culture is to give them a heads up so they can prepare if that's what they choose to do.
Okay, thank you. So next, Rhonda Fitzgerald has a question about starting a program in her institution. Do you want to give more details on your question?
Yes, I was just saying, in my department, we've been looking and going back and forth with doing something similar. You know, they started with go look at what jobs want, come back, build a program for that. Kind of going around in circles with that. I'm grateful for some of the things that you definitely shared. I will go back and do that. But just what advice would you give for, you know, people or programs wanting to do that? And then also conversations to be had as to, yes, we see these types of programs offered everywhere, right? So what are the conversations to partner with these other, you know, departments, you know, but sometimes people are, nope, 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 it's over here, it's over there kind of thing. Like, how do we really do that and do that well? You know, that's going to be best, that's going to be beneficial for our students. And, you know.
Yeah, you can imagine I'm across 4 different institutions.
Ooh.
They have, yeah. So I have like a whole bunch of bosses, right? I guess they keep me in line. Right. So I have a direct line to 4 different provosts, dotted line to 4 presidents, right? And then I have an executive director for day to day. Yeah. Yeah. So, and each institution is going to want to do their own thing. And then even though we're 4 institutions, you have this cooperation. You also have competition because we're different institutions. You see the same thing in one institution, right? So imagine I take that times 4, where you have the departments, they go back and forth. And so when the provost said, really, where do data science programs live? They asked me that probably multiple times. So I really had to think of, well, what is a good answer? So I prepared a subset of what I showed them, but it really could live anywhere. In my mind, it's best live in an interdisciplinary unit if there is one, or I know at Spelman, they can have a minor that's not tethered to a major, right? Morehouse has an interdisciplinary unit, so it can go there. And if you look at, well, the Claremont colleges out in California, Scripps College and, oh, now I'm blanking on the other one. The way that they do it, they actually govern it not by a department. They govern their major minor by a committee of faculty from different units. And so, and then there's a chair of that committee who acts as a department head. So the governance is not in one department. It's actually by committee. And then, but the institution has to figure out, well, what's the workload balance and how are you going to handle that part? I know so at Vanderbilt University, they also have a data science initiative that sits at the provost. That's where I am. And they actually just went for the master's program because you can make money there. And that's their sustainability plan. So they don't have like a data science minor. When you start up the minor, you're taking tuition dollars that are already coming in. So you're not really adding the tuition dollars. However, you can maybe entice more students as recruitment. And you're enhancing the curriculum, right? You don't want, you're building the curriculum, which can be fun. But it really is, so I have a team of all these faculty. We meet bi-weekly. And sometimes they're like, wow, you're just mean. Like, I give them homework and say, look, and we have discussions, everything's shared, and we have kind of a to-do list of things, and we hold each other accountable. And it goes both ways. I give them homework, they give me homework. Trust me, they give me lots of homework too. So that goes well. And of course, Dr. Tarina Lewis was instrumental in really laying that framework for our data science minor. So, you know, give her a high five there. Yeah. But yeah, it is challenging to get everybody on board. But also I start with here, I had to read both documents, my paper and then the National Academy of Sciences report on the undergraduate major. So they read mine. The other one they said was too long. So there's some, hey, what are you going to do? But both of those reports are really good in thinking about how do you do this data science minor, major? You can't find a program that will fit your school. You really just kind of have to talk it out and be flexible in how do you leverage what you have at your school and grow, start with what you have and then grow that into something that makes sense for your institution.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. This was a wonderful conversation, a much needed one. And I definitely want to thank the National Association of Mathematicians for organizing the session and for Dr. Washington for all of her advice. And I guess I want to give the last 30 seconds for Dr. Washington to say.
Oh yeah, Amara, it was Pitzer. Pitzer just put up a minor and Scripps.
Yeah.
No,
And
Claremont McKenna has one and Pitzer just put one out. And how can anybody else get involved with us? I'm a call, a Zoom link, an email away. We're looking to partner. We're going to do a seminar series this spring, as long as the provost are okay. And that's going to be public and we're going to share that broadly. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to partner, if you Rhonda, if you want to come talk with your folks there, just let me know. We're happy to engage. And it's been a lot of fun presenting here for the NAM Cox-Talbot lecture. And I hope that as I move forward in my career, that I can carry on their legacy of really promoting excellence in mathematics and also advancing data science at HBCUs. So thank you everybody for coming. And we're going to have a social hour afterwards. Ask Leon.
Yes. Thank you all. We appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, Jerry, for coming. Congressman Jerry McNerney, he's from
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's a mathematician. He's from the 9th District of California. So, you give him.
Would you like to say anything, Jerry? I'm sorry, I didn't see you up there.
Hanging in there and doing the good work, even to the wee hours of this morning.
That's right. Well, thank you, Monica, for pulling together, and Talitha, Dr. Washington, great, very interesting. I love the information about the 911 response time versus zip code. That's the kind of information we need to have. AI is being developed right now. So get the talent out there, get that information out there, and hopefully we'll kind of tamp down the bias we're seeing out there. And the disparity you mentioned between the treatment of Black Lives Matter protesters and the rioters yesterday was not missed by members of Congress. We have put out a very strong request from the Department of Justice to track down what happened and why that was so badly managed yesterday, and why it was so hardly managed, badly managed in a different way with the Black Lives Matter. So things in progress.
Thank you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Jerry. That's so much. Thank you for your work. Thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you all. Good to see everyone.
Yes, we'll have a great evening.
I know that we'll be cut off automatically.
Okay, we can stick on as long till they cut us off if you like to officially.
Dr. Washington.
I posted a Zoom link.
Oh, did you see it there? Buckmeyer, did you see the Zoom link? And you can drink water.
I was thinking that.
That's what I do.
Where is the
Get Ron Mickens on. He drinks water also.
Yeah, so the Zoom link is in the chat window. So you might want to click on it, grab that phone number. I don't know.
Yeah, I will put it in again now.
Oh, there's the Zoom link. Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so we can head over there also to ask Dr. Washington some more questions.
Oh, so nice.
It's very informal there.
Okay.
Somebody said they work at a non-HBCUs and they're struggling to make the math curriculum more diverse and equity focused. What nuggets can you provide? Well, after the springtime, when we have that course going, we'll have those. There's also, so this is Aka.
Hold on a second, Talitha. For AMS, can you stop their recording, please? I don't know how to. I don't have control of stop it.
Are you going to say
I
something?
think you can do it. You can stop the recording if you go to the top.
I believe there's a,
I'm co-host, not host. I can't, I don't know if,
That's okay.
Try it. Try it.
I won't do anything crazy.
okay, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Talitha can too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're in a non-HBCUs, how can you make the math curriculum more diverse and equity focused? What I did when I was at Howard University, I actually team taught a course with Todd Drum, who unfortunately passed away. He's a geometer, and we team taught a course. We got students together, grabbed data sets, and we did team teaching, no lectures, just let's sit down with this data set and what can we say? And so there are different data sets where you can look at topics. I mean, there's a lot of COVID data, and there's a lot you could say about that. And if you want more data sets, send me an email. Somebody posted on Twitter the other day some different data sets that could be valuable. But there are different data sets, and it's really the way that I look at it is I follow the nose of the students. So my students will ask those questions, and if I don't, I'll ask questions that make sure that we are diverse and equity focused, and that we are thinking about different aspects of the data set that we're looking at. So it's not just crunching numbers, it's really asking questions. What about this? What about that? Did we take this into account? And a lot of what ifs. And then before that was James M. Facial recognition, misidentified the person. Did the police not compare the photo manually before handcuffing the poor innocent victim of the mistake? Unfortunately, there has been a lot of Black males who have been misidentified through facial recognition. I have articles of 4, I just picked one. And they don't look anything like the other person. There was one, is a slender guy. He was tatted up the arms, and then the person they were looking for had no tattoos. I don't know how somebody misses that. Are we taking pictures?
maybe.
You gotta tell people to turn the camera on.
I know,
I've had a lot of coffee, so I could probably talk to
I
midnight.
muted myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt the discussion, but it seems that I already have. Can I take a picture?
Okay. By the
Go ahead.
way, turn on your camera and smile so the awesome Amira Ortega can take our photo.
Okay, I'm gonna take a photo, everyone. I'll count to 3 and then we'll all be set. Okay.
Last time my electricity went out.
Okay. 1. Okay. If there's any last minute, thank you, Dr. Bozeman. So we pushed out the conference tech support person. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Let's take another one just for good measure. And 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Sorry for
Thank
the
you.
interrupting. You were making a great point.
Oh, wow. I've had a lot of coffee. Well,
What's the
somebody said that their math department, their department's being pressured to create a data science degree,
That's 10.
despite how unprepared they are to make it.
Oh,
I found that really I don't want to say the easiest way, but a nice transition into something new. This is what I would do I'm getting old now, is I would do either a topics course or an independent study with like 2 or 3 students at a time, where I would use them. We would just sit down and talk through different topics. There's an open intro stats book, which is free, uses R, has active data sets that I use to work with students. We can just kind of work through that, ask questions, we can grab other data sets, but we're really just kind of exploring, figuring out together. So I probably wouldn't recommend teaching if it's something completely new, teaching a full blown course in it. Ease into it through like an independent study topics course with the student, so you can kind of learn it with the student, and also through the student's eyes and what they will see and what they won't see, and vice versa. But yeah,
But with that being said, though, when you have institutions that want to do something like that, right, and they don't feel like everyone's quite there, but you have faculty that are interested in that area, like what do you suggest, like how to, like different development to hone in on these skills if you have multiple faculty, you know what I mean, that are interested?
Yeah.
Like what do they do,
So what I've done is we don't have faculty learning communities because, I have some research heavy institutions. So I have learning and research communities where they could either learn a topic or they could do a research around a topic that could lead into a white paper. So we fund that where, let's say if you have a faculty who's just like, I love whatever. Okay, that's nice. Now I need for you to share that love with some of your friends across, in my case, across the AUC. And so I'll incentivize that. And you know, these are the faculty learning communities, but since I have the research oriented, sometimes faculty learning community can have a weird vibe. So that's why I went with learning and research communities, because it could lead to developing research collaborations. So it could do that. So that's, I think, one idea. Another idea is ask faculty to host workshops. Hey, you know, that's so great. You do all of that. You're amazing and fantastic. We would love for you to do a workshop. Now, if that came from somebody high enough up, right, in your institution, they were like, oh, so-and-so thinks I'm important. Of course I'm going to do that, right? So I would ask those faculty to lead workshops with other faculty, because it will help other faculty come get to know what they're doing, but it'll also help that person learn what their colleagues know and don't know, right? So I would also ask them if they could somehow lead a workshop, either by, like I said, somebody high enough who can tell them how fantastic they are, or, you know, or money, you know, to be frank. But those are two things. And then another thing, you could do a talk, but sometimes a talk isn't where people can actually learn. So that's why I really don't say like a lecture. Tarina, did you want to talk about what you did last summer? Because people really liked what she did. I'm still crying that she's somewhere in Providence.
Somewhere in Providence. So last summer we had, well, 2 summers ago, we started a summer program with 6 students where we had the students go through some edX courses. So these students were STEM majors and the students didn't have any data science background. So what we did was we had a group of faculty members going through some edX courses, and we had the students also go through some edX courses, and they learned data science skills for a month. So after that month, the faculty members worked with the students on data science research projects. And we use open source data sets, mostly from Kaggle. And then the students had a symposium at the end. So we started with 6 students the first year, and I think we had 24 students the second year. And then some of the students even gave talks at NAM, and one of the students won the best oral presentation at NAM.
You did a great
job. Yeah. So, but what we did was we took them from ground zero. In the summer, they went through some edX courses. We structured it in a way that they had many presentations throughout the summer, and then they had a full symposium at the end of the summer. And the skill level from day 0 to 2 months later was just vastly different. And so the students, and so now one of the students that went through the first summer program, even she received a job offer in data science because she was able to present her summer research for a job talk. But she turned it down, and she went to Georgia State to their data science analytics program. And so she went to work on her master's degree. And so she'll be coming out of that program next year.
But you also led, I was also thinking about the faculty community.
Oh, the faculty side. Yes.
Yeah, getting faculty to talk, right?
Mm-hmm. So in addition to the student side, we had faculty members going through the edX courses also. And I went through the edX courses first. So I didn't know anything about data science. I went through the edX courses first. And I was able to walk the faculty members through. We had it was in the summer, I think it was for 2 months, and we had evening sessions at 8 p.m. to about 9:30, where we would just work on data science concepts and work through it together so that we can build a skill set of our faculty members as we are trying to think about who's going to teach the students how to do data science.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm still crying. Somebody asked if have we done outreach to community colleges? So I've talked with community colleges around data science, but not yet, not yet. So I think that will be coming. And then somebody asked if we pay faculty for their time. So for some of it, yeah, we do incentivize faculty to participate because it is their time that they could be doing something else. And I guess in a way we're kind of being selfish. We want to build up the courses, the learning experience for students. So this really is an investment in the faculty to invest in enhancing the education. So we all benefit. And I forgot to say that the data science initiative was actually funded by a seed grant from the United Health Group. It is $8.25 million grant. And we're also looking to get more funding. We just got funding to pilot up a virtual computer lab, so that would be coming down the pike. And we'll also have more industry partners that will engage with us as we develop other programming and development opportunities. So
And
can I share a link?
Let me just add something, Talitha, and I would add that our students were funded through some grant funding we had with NSF. We asked to repurpose the funds to help for the students to have this summer experience, and so they were funded through NSF, and then the Data Science Initiative, and our provost funded some of our non-STEM students. So
Yeah. So we're building, growing, moving and shaking everywhere around curriculum, research, and engagement. So, and I put the link to the website in the chat window. Oh, somebody said they're unionized, so those things come up for lecturers and not tenure track. Yeah, the paying faculty for their time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we do give some compensation. I'll say some, yeah. This was fun. Thank you, Tarina.
you're welcome.
I'll try. I won't cry one day.
It's okay.
That's good. That's good. Well, I guess are we moving over to Leon's gathering?
We are moving.
Serena, can you shoot me an email address if you don't mind?
I will.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Oh, is the baby sleeping?
Yes.
Oh, I miss those days. I now have grown-ups. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. We'll see you around the JMM way.